Day, Republicans inching closer and closer to victory on taxes. It is not a done deal, however. Breaking overnight, the House paving the way for a vote today, in the House that is. The president might be signing this bill by midweek, just in time for Christmas. But there are landmines out there, so we're watching and waiting for those. I'm Bill Hemmer, live inside of America's Newsroom. Good to have you with us today. How you doing, Sandra?
Good morning to you, Bill. Things could change by the minute at this point. I'm Sandra Smith. Last night, the House Rules Committee signing off on the plan. Next up, a vote today on the House floor. Once approved, it is then off to the Senate.
Holdout Senators Mike Lee, Susan Collins saying they back the plan, but this is not a done deal. Have a listen.
I expect it to be a good, strong vote. And I'm confident the Senate will follow.
It's a fairly good product, but I'm still a no.
I'm still looking at it.
I'm still going to be a no. The changes in the SALT deduction actually don't satisfy the needs of the people that I represent.
I'm very proud of this bill and what it does for ordinary people. I think Senator Rubio's and Senator Lee's suggestions about the child tax credit were an improvement. We have simplified it, not as much as I would like. But this bill is going to touch just about every American.
Well, that all sets up for an exciting day. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live on the North Lawn. A big day ahead of you and for all. John?
You know, it always seems that way, Sandra, that at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're always looking ahead to a big day here at the White House, but this one probably bigger than most. White House sources tell me they think that they are going to get tax reform buttoned up tonight. They say they have got the votes to pull this thing across the finish line. Arizona Senator John McCain is out, so the maximum votes in the Senate are 51. You see pictures of the other Arizona Senator, Jeff Flake, there. He has been resistant on this, but the White House believes that they do have him on board now. He's been looking for movement on a fix for DACA, about the so-called Dreamers. The Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and Mark Short went to see him to talk about it. Mark Short is the Legislative Affairs Director here at the White House. Listen to what Senator Flake said after that meeting.
We're still looking at the bill, still reading the bill, still working on some other issues. Just came from a meeting on DACA, for example, so we're trying to get that moving concurrently with the bill. Obviously, it won't be voted on here now, but January is going to be busy.
Sources tell Fox News that they believe that Flake is good, and as you pointed out at the top of this, Sandra and Bill, the other senators who were sitting on the fence, they believe that they have them on board too. So here's the schedule for what's going to happen. This afternoon, the House will vote on this. Then it goes to the Senate. They've scheduled 10 hours of debate, but they think they can cut that back. The White House believes that they might get a vote by 10 o'clock tonight. Then 48 hours to enroll the bill and send it to the president for his signature. He could get it on his desk maybe late Thursday or Friday, but then there is a process of White House review, which will take a few days. So the bill could go to Mar-a-Lago if the president wanted to sign it down there next week. But more likely, and this is shaping up to be the likely scenario here, the president will hold off on signing it until the first week of January when everybody is back, and then have a big signing ceremony to say that he finally got tax reform, his signature legislative issue. He doesn't want this, Sandra, to get lost in the weeds of just kind of like a small little ceremony in Mar-a-Lago. He wants to do this up big with a lot of people behind him.
Historic tax reform it could be. Well, John, there is also a report out that the president is upset with Judge Gorsuch.
Or was back in the spring. The White House is pushing back hard against this idea that the president was ever thinking about pulling back Judge Gorsuch's confirmation. This all relates to an interview that Gorsuch had back in February with Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, in which Gorsuch said that the president's tweets attacking the federal judges were, quote, demoralizing. A source told me that the president was frustrated when he read about that exchange. He said something to the effect of, what the heck is this? Might have expressed some other thoughts about it as well. But after the staff explained it to him, he was fine with it. I'm told at no point that he ever asked staff about, well, should we think about pulling back this nomination and find somebody else? The president also was a little bit concerned that he thought that he hadn't heard from Gorsuch after the confirmation. But the president was told that Gorsuch sent a letter to him, a handwritten letter on March the 2nd. For some reason, it never made it to the president's desk. So the Legislative Affairs Director, Mark Short, ran downstairs on March the 10th when the president inquired about it, brought it up, and apparently the president was fine about that. Another big event coming up in just the next couple of minutes. The Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert holding a briefing on North Korea's involvement in the WannaCry virus of earlier this year that targeted millions of computers around the world. The National Security Council says North Korea was behind it. They expect that other countries will soon come out with that determination, among them the UK, and will put maximum pressure on North Korea to make sure it doesn't rebuild the infrastructure that it put together to launch that attack. Not much going on here today, Sanders. It's another day.
And that voting on tax reform, it could go into the wee hours of the night, as we just heard from Sarah Sanders. So we're going to put our seatbelts on. John Roberts, thank you.
Thank you.
That is one alert. Here's another now. Deputy FBI Director Andy McCabe testifying today on the Hill. He will appear behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee. One of the top questions today, those anti-Trump texts between FBI agent Peter Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page. He was removed from Mueller's team several months ago. South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy leads the questions. He's with me now. Sir, welcome back and good morning to you.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to understand from Andrew McCabe today?
Bill, Andrew McCabe cuts across every facet of every investigation in 2016 that your viewers are interested in, from Secretary Clinton's email to the investigation into the Trump campaign. He's the deputy director of the FBI. So there are a ton of questions, including the one you made reference to, the meeting between Agent Strzok and Lisa Page in, quote, Andy's office. We need to make sure that was Andy McCabe. And if they were coming up with a, quote, insurance policy in case Donald Trump won, that is devastating, and we're going to explore that at 2 o'clock today.
Okay, now, here is that text that you just mentioned on screen for viewers. I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, he meaning Trump. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. How do you interpret that?
The same way most reasonable people do, which is we think Clinton's going to win, but we can't take a chance if she doesn't, and we need an insurance policy. And what I hope is that insurance policy was not a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. You can't read that text in isolation, though, Bill. This was a level of bias that you rarely see, frankly. When Strzok said the vote should be 100 million to 0. What he's saying is he can't think of a single one of his fellow citizens that would vote for Donald Trump. And then you add that, and Lisa Page said, well, you know, maybe you stuck around, maybe you're in this position to save the country. And his response was, I can save the country in a lot of different ways. Unprecedented bias. He's in the middle of major investigations. Thank God he's gone, but I want to know how the hell he got there in the first place.
Robert Mueller thinks, well, some believe Robert Mueller has been sloppy. Do you think that's true, or is that just coming from the White House and others on the right?
You know, I ran a district attorney's office. I am responsible for every hire that we made while I was there, although I didn't conduct every hire and interview while I was there. So the boss always is responsible. Do I think that Robert Mueller did the actual interviews and asked people, hey, do you have any bias? Have you donated to campaigns? No. In hindsight, should he or someone else have asked those questions? Absolutely. I am heartened by the fact that he kicked Strzok off as soon as he learned. I just wish he'd learned sooner.
One last topic here. This comes from Politico. Here's the headline for viewers as well. The secret backstory of how Obama let Hezbollah off the hook. It is a detailed, very involved story about how during the middle of the nuclear deal and nuclear talks with Iran, that Hezbollah was funneling money all over the world, including selling cars and selling cocaine and bringing it in the Middle East. Now, I don't know if you have seen this story.
Yes, sir.
It is very detailed. What do you make of it at first glance?
It's an incredible allegation that any administration would ignore one terrorist group because you were trying to curry favor with another terrorist group. It is incendiary. It is worthy of investigation across several different committees of Congress. Bill, I'd also note there was testimony a while back. It was kind of buried in a written opening statement where an official said as much, that they put the brakes on Hezbollah because they were so consumed with this legacy piece of a deal with Iran. So kudos to guys like Mike Pompeo and Tom Cotton, who had a lot of reasons for opposing the Iranian deal way back when. This just gives us one more. And if it's true, it's a pretty damning indictment of Obama's search for a legacy and his willingness to do anything to get one.
Last point on that. They suggest this is the real collusion. What do you think about that?
The real collusion is between...
Well, what the Obama team was doing when they were in power and all the players, be it Hezbollah, be it Iran, or possibly even Russia's ambitions in the Middle East?
We're gonna need to. I don't want to base it off of a political story. Congress has vast investigatory powers. We need to look into it. The allegation is incredibly serious that you would ignore a group that's killing American soldiers and wreaking havoc around the world just so you can cut a deal with a country that no one trusts. It's an incredibly serious allegation. Unlike some of my Democrat colleagues, Bill, I want to wait until after the investigation to draw conclusions instead of doing it on the front end.
Thank you, sir, for your time. 2 o'clock hearing today behind closed doors. Trey Gowdy, the Republican from South Carolina. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
New developments now on that deadly Amtrak train derailment in Washington state. A live look here at the scene this morning in DuPont, Washington. This is just south of Seattle. Federal investigators say information from the event data recorder shows the train was traveling at just over 80 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone. It careened off an overpass south of Seattle yesterday and spilled cars onto a busy highway below. 3 people were killed in the wreckage and nearly a dozen seriously injured.
Our mission is to not just understand what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes so that we can prevent another tragedy from happening again.
The train was making the inaugural run on a new route designed to speed up service between Portland, Oregon and Seattle at the time of the crash. Survivors now recounting the moment when all but one rail car came off those tracks.
All the lights flickered and went out, and suddenly I was at a 45-degree angle, kind of falling over, and the seats in front of me had come dislodged and were swinging around.
Amtrak says some 80 people were on board the train when it went off the tracks during yesterday's morning commute. The FBI and NTSB are on the scene at this time. We are there on the ground. Live report later this hour. All of that unfolding really during the noon hour yesterday, but happening during the morning commute there just outside of Seattle.
Pretty extraordinary when you see the shape of those train cars and how more people did not lose their lives. So we're going to look at that coming up next hour. In the meantime, breaking news now from overseas. Arabian Peninsula missile fired into Saudi Arabia straight for the royal palace. We'll tell you what happened, who fired it, and more coming up. Plus, there is this.
We are now putting America first. We are rebuilding our nation, our confidence, and our standing in the world.
President Trump revealing his foreign policy doctrine yesterday, sticking to a familiar theme. Our panel takes it up. Also,
we are awaiting a vote today in the House on tax reform. Will it happen? A closer look at the bill and what it means for you. Standing by at home.
Huge day, not just for the White House, not just for Congress, but most importantly for America, especially middle-class Americans who are going to see the biggest benefit.
Look, we've just finished 8 years of Washington spending your money. Let's try 8 years of you spending your money and making America competitive, and then a future Congress can decide, is that right for this country?
Right there is the man in the middle of all this tax bill. House Ways and Means Committee Chair Kevin Brady. If the House clears it, the Senate expected to start debating, could vote either later today or tomorrow. Wow. Art Laffer hasn't seen this in 31 years, former Ronald Reagan economics advisor. How you doing, Art? Good morning.
Very well, Bill.
You,
Merry
sir.
Christmas to you.
And to you as well. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Broad strokes here, okay, on the screen. This is what it does. Corporate rate goes down to 21%. You've got 7 individual tax brackets, and a lot of people did not like that. The top rate at the last moment was reduced about 2.5 points, 37. Repeals the federal mandate requiring people to buy insurance. Okay, now, Art, you studied this thing to death, all right?
Yes, I have.
What is your projection and or prediction for how it affects a person, a family, a business, or the economic health of the country?
Well, let me start with the last, the economic health of the country. The one thing I was very worried about this bill, was that they would put in a delay for the tax rate reduction. They did not. It starts on January 1st, 2018. Which means we won't have the recession that we had in 1982. So I'm expecting strong growth starting right away. Now, if you look at what I mean by strong growth, from January 1st, 1983 to June 30th, 1984, that's a 1.5-year period, U.S. real GDP grew by about 12%. That's at an 8% annualized rate. I think we're going to have growth far higher than almost all of the pundits are projecting.
Far higher. Okay.
Far
right,
higher.
Keep going. All right.
Number 2, between August of 1982 and 1999, November, the stock market was up 1,340%, or in real terms, it was up 720%, a huge 7-fold increase. Now, I expect this stock market to continue rising for as far as the eye can see. So I am very bullish. Job creation from August of 1981 to the end of 1981 until the end of his term, we created almost 20 million jobs on a much smaller population. So I expect employment growth to be very strong. Now, from a personal standpoint, people are going to get jobs that don't have them. People are going to be pulled out of the, not out of the unemployed roles, but out of the non-work roles and rejoin the labor force and start working.
Well, hey,
I think this is going to be great.
Are those glasses, are those tinted with rose? Those glasses?
Thank you. I'm just telling you what happened with Reagan and why I say this.
We're looking at Dow 25,000. We've had a run up of 7,000 points. I mean, how do you find more room to run? How do you draw that conclusion?
Let me tell you
then I got one more question.
Sure. The Dow in August of 1982 was 777. That was its low just before the tax cuts took effect. And by the end of Reagan's term, I don't know what it was, 3,500, 4,000, I'm 5,000. It was way, way up. So we've got lots and lots of room. The Dow hasn't doubled since Trump has been in office. If it went up threefold, you'd be more like what would happen with Reagan. It's not even close to that growth.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to give us the worst case scenario.
Well, the worst
big piece of legislation have unintended consequences. What could go wrong here, Art?
Well, I don't think much can go wrong with the tax bill, to be very serious with you. What can go wrong politically is something can happen with Mueller. You know what happened with Reagan when he got shot. There were all these wild, out of the woods sort of contingencies that can happen to an economy. I don't think those are going to happen this time. But, you know, you always have to worry about something coming out from left field. And that is what I worry about for the U.S. economy.
But if your growth projections are anywhere close to being right, that would be another bull market. I mean,
Bill,
really big boom. Quickly, I got to go.
But they're just what happened under Clinton. I mean, just what happened under Reagan and what happened under Kennedy. I don't know why we shouldn't happen under Trump.
Come on back, okay? Art, Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Bill.
Art Laffer
Merry
there in
Christmas to
Nashville.
you, sir.
Thank you. Sandra, what's next?
Good to hear from Art on that. And you heard him mention these markets keep on soaring in anticipation of tax reform getting done. The Dow so far logging its biggest annual points gain in its history. We'll talk about what is driving the stock market and who deserves the credit. Breaking news from across the pond. London police stopped what they believe was going to be a Christmas Day attack. How the possible plot may share chilling details with another deadly attack from 1 year ago today. We will have a live report.
Another alert now, 9:24, Fox News alert. The Saudis intercepting a missile that was said to be targeting the royal palace. We're told Yemeni rebels fired a missile over southern Riyadh, the kingdom's capital. The Saudi-led coalition says it intercepted the missile and no damage was done. The Saudis have Patriot missile batteries. We do not know if that was used here, but this is the second missile attack by rebels targeting Riyadh since early last month when they took aim at the airport. That was also intercepted when that was launched.
We have created more than 2 million jobs since the election. Unemployment is at a 17-year low. The stock market is at an all-time high, and just a little while ago hit yet another all-time high, the 85th time since my election.
Well, that's President Trump taking credit for the success of the economy and the rising stock market. The Dow now up 5,000 points this year alone. That's the biggest annual point gain in its 120-year history, and the tax reform bill looks to be on the brink of becoming law now. So let's ask Dagan McDowell what that all means. She's here from the Fox Business Network. I know you've had a busy morning, but you watch this so closely. And people are looking at this stock market and saying, first of all, what is driving this?
Well, a lot of it is optimism about what's going on in the economy and the future of the economy. A lot of it is deregulation. I think Maria Bartiromo has talked about this endlessly, that when you get out of the way of businesses and let them work at what they're best, then that also helps the economy. And also, every economy, every developed economy, major economy in the world is growing this year. 45 major economies all growing in sync. It's the first time that's happened since 2007. So it's a lot. And then anticipation of this tax reform package becoming law.
Which is all coming down to this moment, this day. We could certainly see what the future is. The president is taking a lot of credit for this, not just for taxes potentially getting done, but for the rise in the stock market. This morning he tweeted, stocks in the economy have a long way to go after the tax cut bill is totally understood and appreciated in scope and size. Immediate expensing will have a big impact. Biggest tax cuts and reform ever passed. Enjoy and create many beautiful jobs.
He ran on this, and so he does get credit for this. He ran on cutting regulations, and he ran on growing this economy by cutting taxes. And he's not wrong. We had somebody on this morning that sees, just based on the corporate tax cut going down to 21%, goes into effect immediately, you get an additional 9% growth in earnings next year, above what people were expecting. That takes the S&P 500, based on some math, up another 15% on top of what it's done. But you brought up the record point gain in the Dow. So the Dow's up a little more than 25% this year. The NASDAQ has done even better.
It's hard to believe when you look back at the milestones this year that we just saw the Dow move through that 20,000 mark January 25th, shortly after Inauguration Day. And then it was March, we blew through 21,000, August 22,000, October 23,000, to where we are today, almost 25,000 for the Dow. And Art Laffer was just on with Bill a few moments ago saying, based on this tax reform getting done, that stock market is going to keep on going up as far as the eye can see.
Absolutely. And every income group in 2019, every single income group gets a tax cut. And the major impact of this, soon to become law, will be on corporations.
But I'm sure you hear what we hear as well, though, Dagan, and that's lack of excitement. A lot of people still don't know how this is going to affect them. But I know Paul Ryan likes to point out that there was that same sentiment before the Reagan-era tax cuts.
I don't believe the polls. No, it's, this tax reform doesn't poll well, but I think people ultimately always speak with their wallets as opposed to what they might tell a pollster who calls on the phone at an inopportune time. Retail sales in November were up 5.8% from a year ago. That's the best November since 2011. So retail optimism among consumers at a 17-year high, small business optimism at a high. And I won't just look at the Dow. The Dow's been on an incredible record-breaking run, but the Dow, the S&P 500,
and the NASDAQ,
the Dow Transports, and the Russell 2000 Small Cap Index, all at records.
It's an important point because it's a broad-based rally, and really it's a global rally that we're seeing as well. Dagan, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Good of you to be here. All right, Bill.
NASDAQ 7,000.
Yeah, baby.
Wow. Bombshell report accusing the Obama team of making a shocking move to get the Iranian deal done on the nuclear front. One former administration member says that story is simply not true. Have a listen here.
This is all pure speculation from people who were not involved in the Iran nuclear deal. They were not in a position to know why certain policies were being pursued and why they weren't.
Did the Obama administration obstruct efforts to stop an Iranian-backed terrorist group just to get the nuclear deal through? This is involved. It is detailed, and Ambassador John Bolton has read it. He's our guest next, live to react.
We look forward to talking with him. Plus, we're learning more about the tragic train derailment outside of Seattle. Live on the scene next.
Track 501. Emergency. We are on the ground. We are on the bridge. Need EMS ASAP.
9:33 here in New York now. On a Fox News alert, we are learning more after an Amtrak train traveling more than twice the speed limit jumped the tracks around this time yesterday. 3 people are dead, and this is audio from the 911 call made between the train and the dispatcher.
We're coming around the corner to take the bridge over I-5 there. right north of Nisqually, and we went on the ground.
Okay, are you, is everybody okay?
I'm still figuring that out. We got cars everywhere and down onto the highway.
Claudia Cowan back live on the scene again today. DuPont, Washington. And Claudia, we know speed was a factor. And what else are you hearing from investigators at this point?
Well, that's right. Good morning, Bill. The speed is certainly the headline here today, with investigators saying that this Amtrak train was going 80 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. Now, whether speed caused yesterday's derailment or contributed to it remains unknown. Investigators say they are examining a number of possible factors.
They're going to be looking at the operations, the track itself, the mechanics of the train, survival factors, the human performance. They'll be looking at all of that simultaneously and trying to also get more information off the recorders.
Now, the tracks, which had been used by freight trains here for years, had recently undergone a $181 million upgrade to enable high-speed passenger service between Seattle and Portland. Though technology that can slow or stop a speeding train was not in use on this stretch of track, and just 2 weeks ago, one local mayor predicted there would be fatalities with these high-speed trains traveling so close to traffic and pedestrians. In a statement, Amtrak said, quote, "At this time, we will not speculate about the cause, and we encourage others not to speculate as well." But people are going to want answers, and soon, as to why this train was going 50 miles over the speed limit. Now, take a live look here. We're about a quarter mile away from where this train derailed. Huge cranes are now lifting away the wreckage. Tough going in cold temperatures and a steady downpour. But this is Interstate 5. It's a major artery here in the Pacific Northwest. It has been closed since yesterday morning, and officials and highway workers working as fast as possible to get this stretch of freeway back open. Bill?
Claudia Cowan, good to have you back on scene there today, and our best to everybody. Thank you from Washington State.
It's an incredible allegation that any administration would ignore one terrorist group because you were trying to curry favor with another terrorist group. It is incendiary. It is worthy of investigation. And if it's true, it's a pretty damning indictment of Obama's search for a legacy and his willingness to do anything to get one.
That's fresh reaction from just a short time ago from Trey Gowdy to a fellow Republican's request to investigate a new report in Politico, a bombshell claim that the Obama administration blocked a crackdown on Hezbollah in order to get the Iranian nuclear deal through. The report says the administration derailed a task force targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terror group, even as it was sending cocaine into the United States. John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. And to Trey Gowdy's point, these are serious allegations if true. Ambassador?
Right. Well, Congressman Pittenger of North Carolina has asked for the investigation. I certainly think that's warranted. I don't believe anything I read in Politico just on its own say-so. Let's see what the full facts are. But let's also be clear. Number one, Obama administration appeasement of Iran via allowing the obstruction of the investigation of Hezbollah would be entirely consistent with the way that the Obama administration negotiated the rest of the Iran nuclear deal and associated agreements like the hostage release and the provisions regarding ballistic missiles. There was almost nothing that the administration was not prepared to give Tehran in order to get this deal. And number two, what possible reason could there be to obstruct drug-related or other criminal-related investigations of Hezbollah other than to appease the Iranians so as not to obstruct the deal? Hezbollah has been an enemy of the United States since 1983 when they attacked the Marine barracks at Lebanon under the direction, I might add, of an Islamic Revolutionary Guards officer corps from Tehran. When you see Hezbollah committing criminal acts like drug trafficking or human trafficking, American law enforcement ought to come down hard on them. I can't think of a single reason why we wouldn't go after them tooth and claw.
So it's about 26 pages, this report in my hand, and it details an elaborate campaign led by the Drug Enforcement Administration, as you know, the DEA, known as Project Cassandra, reportedly targeting the Lebanese militant group's criminal activities. It quotes a man, David Asher, saying that this was a policy decision. It was a systemic decision. He helped establish Project Cassandra as a Defense Department illicit finance analyst in 2008. I want to read you this quote from him, Ambassador Bolton. In it, he says, "The closer we got to the Iran deal, the more these activities went away. So much of the capability, whether it was special operations, whether it was law enforcement, whether it was Treasury designations, even the capacity, the personnel assigned to this mission, it was assiduously drained almost to the last drop by the end of the Obama administration." Your thoughts?
Well, it's a pretty categorical accusation, and let's by all means have Congress get into it and find out the facts. But if you look at it objectively, it is entirely consistent with the way the Obama administration performed with respect to its opposition to the Assad regime in nearby Syria. The declared objective of the Obama administration was to move Assad out of power, but they didn't take anything like the steps that might be necessary because they knew that Assad was a tool of the Ayatollahs in Tehran, and they didn't want to do anything that might upset the Ayatollahs and upset the deal, even to the point, as we all well remember, when Obama said if he saw chemical weapons being moved around in Syria, that would be a red line. The red line came and went, and we didn't do anything. Why? Because if we had retaliated against Assad's use of chemical weapons, it might have messed up the Iran nuclear deal. So across the board, the Obama administration was giving the store away to Iran. It's one reason it's such a terrible deal.
Marie Harf, who's on this program often, she worked for the Obama State Department. She was involved in instructing the Iran deal. She went on Fox News earlier this morning and said this is absolutely not true. Listen.
The Politico story, this narrative in it, is just false. And there's no evidence in this story to back up their allegations. They quote a couple of low-level ideological sources who clearly don't like the Iran deal, but everything I know just doesn't back up this narrative. This story is a hit job, honestly, with no truth behind it.
We'll see where this goes. Trey Gowdy was on a few moments ago with us, said he received this letter from Robert Pettinger of North Carolina. And Pettinger himself is saying these revelations are shocking and infuriating. So, Ambassador Bolton, thank you for weighing in on it.
One point, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of people that would have been involved in this DEA, DOD operation. So let's talk to all of them and see where the truth is.
All right, and we'll see where that goes. Ambassador Bolton, thank you.
So the president now unveiling his doctrine for national security and how he says he will keep America safe by putting America first. Evaluates the Trump doctrine. Next.
Plus, a vote by the United Nations Security Council showing global opposition to President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. How the U.S. is responding.
The fact that this veto is being done in defense of American sovereignty and in defense of America's role in the Middle East peace process is not a source of embarrassment for us. It should be an embarrassment to the remainder of the Security Council.
With this strategy, we are calling for a great reawakening of America, a resurgence of confidence, and a rebirth of patriotism, prosperity, and pride. With the strategy I am announcing today, we are declaring that America is in the game and America is going to win.
So there you go, President Trump sticking to a familiar theme used during his campaign, unveiling his foreign policy doctrine during this national security strategy speech yesterday. The president saying his aims will be built around his the UN, Nikki Haley, blasting the UN Security Council for a resolution that requires President Trump to rescind his declaration of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and Haley calling that an insult here in New York.
What we witnessed here today in the Security Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten. It's one more example of the United Nations doing more harm than good in addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Today, for the simple act of deciding where to put our embassy, the United States was forced to defend its sovereignty.
Palestinian protesters clashing with Israeli troops yesterday in the West Bank. There's been some unrest over the president's decision nearly 2 weeks ago, but perhaps not as much as many had predicted in the Middle East.
4 men arrested on suspicion of plotting a terror attack in the UK. They're being questioned today in West Yorkshire. Police there say plotting was in the advanced stage and was connected to a Christmas target. Kitty Logan is live from London for us. Kitty, what more can you tell us about those arrests?
The arrest took place in the northern city of Sheffield and also in nearby Chesterfield. An army bomb disposal unit was sent to the home of one of the suspects in Chesterfield. Residents there were evacuated as a precaution. Police say the arrests were based on intelligence and are part of an ongoing investigation. There were no further details given about a possible target of this plot, but there is extra security at Christmas markets in the UK, such as here in Birmingham. Barriers in place there to prevent vehicle attacks. Police say the measures are to reassure the public people should not be alarmed. But this, Sandra, is what many Christmas markets look like 1 year after that deadly truck attack in Berlin.
Yeah, so Kitty, how is the anniversary of that attack in Berlin being marked?
There has been a memorial event today at the square where the attack happened. Relatives of those who died gathered alongside Berlin's mayor, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, also attending. They laid flowers, placed candles beside a new memorial plaque. And family members have criticised German authorities for not doing more to prevent this attack, saying they haven't had enough help in the aftermath either. 12 people killed in that attack, 70 wounded when a truck drove into that busy Christmas market. Many of the injured are still recovering. The German government today has apologised for any shortcomings and says it will do more to try to help family members who lost loved ones. Sandra.
Kitty Logan in London for us. Thank you.
Deputy FBI Director Andy McCabe set to testify before the House Intelligence Committee today. He will likely face many questions on those anti-Trump texts sent by a top FBI agent, so we will have details on that in a moment. Meanwhile, moments away from a news conference with House Republican leadership as that tax plan is set to hit the floor for a vote today, so stand by. That's coming up.
Big day.